one of the things that you might find on like either ITAP or AppSats, their listserv, is that there may be clinicians, therapists who are not Christians. And so that's an important question I think that we address in this conversation is it important/essential to have a therapist or a clinician who follows Jesus, or is there value in having someone outside of our faith practice to be helping us as well?
Yeah. Are you asking that as a question?
I am asking that as a question.
Well, you don't have to agree with my answer. Let me start with that. I give you permission to think.
Done.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, done.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, no. You want someone that's competent in the issues. But I really believe that the incarnation was a wonderful gift when God embraced humanity, and that God's truth can somehow flow through all kinds of individuals when their heart's open to pursuing truth and helping. And again, you've heard me say it, I don't have to have a Christian plumber or a Christian whatever. I just want someone that's really competent that can kind of help me in these regards, and that has taken God's truth or wisdom. They may even not it's God's truth, but they've taken truth and
let me speak to maybe some of the fear that maybe motivates that. Is that would I want, like having someone who's not a Christian poking around in my engine in my car? No big deal. But the idea of letting someone in, and I think this is whether it's legit or not, a fear of letting some psychologist or some therapist that isn't a Christian in my mind or in my soul poking around, that there's that fear. Can you speak to that?
Well, it would be like a heart doctor or, as we get older, there's other procedures we have to have done.
I think I know what you're talking about.
So, there's a trust level.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is where you're kind of discerning, just like if I had cancer and there were 4 cancer, options for me to go get help, I'm going to discern what might be the best one for me. And is this a caring, trustworthy individual? What is their record state? Who has been with them before? You're going to use some discernment about that regard.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, I would really caution people who maybe would go to just a zealous pastor who has such a heart to help every human being in the world, but doesn't really have a level of competency to understand trauma or understand how trauma affects addiction or understand the neuroscience of the brain or some of these things that are really integral about abuse. So for me, when I was pastoral care in my role, I always stuck within my education and my experience. Yeah. Even last week, someone came to me and said, Rodney, I heard you can really help people. And after just a 30-minute conversation, I said, let me point you to the Pure Desire website. They have trained clinicians that can help you. If I can be a coach and a cheerleader, you're welcome to call me, and here's my cell, right? And I'll point you, but this is what I'm not competent to do. But there are people that are. Yeah. And so I think that's just a piece of that. Good-hearted Christians are not always your most competent people to really help you. So discern. Again, it's a discerning process. Yes. Don't you think so, Justin? Does that make sense?
I like how you're using, use discernment and look for competency, because I do think those are better maybe guidance than just Christian or unchristian. In Rodney's story, he had grown up in a Christian home, was serving in a good church, had a godly wife. Shout out to Tracy.
Yes.
So he was surrounded by a lot of really good Christian community.
Yes.
So his need to maybe find therapy from another Christian voice was probably a lot less than if someone was in a totally different situation, who maybe is from their family's not Christian, they're not in many circles of Christian friends. I mean, they may be a little more cautious of what kind of input am I going to get in this area of my life. So some discernment there. I know in my own story, what the Pure Desire counseling team was able to do for me, obviously they were coming from a Christian perspective, and I was a pastor and grew up in the church.
Right.
But what I had was a huge disconnect between a lot of my struggles and my faith.
Yeah.
And so because they were coming from a faith perspective, they were able to help me kind of piece together things that I had been keeping, integration, the things I had been keeping very separate. Versus I think a secular counselor may not have had that focus. And could that still have happened? Well, sure. I just would have had to do it on my own. But I think competency is so important, because the truth is we can get bad advice in the secular world and we can get bad advice in the Christian world. I mean, how many couples have we heard say, we went to our pastor or we went to our church's counselor, and their first question is, well, are you giving them enough sex? how available are you to him to meet his needs? And it's like,
How hurtful.
we've learned
Yeah.
so many ways that that's perpetuating hurt. It's perpetuating addiction and not helping.
No.
But Christian counselors are still saying that all over the country.
Right.
On the flip side, you can go to secular counselors that are going to say, oh, you guys should be watching porn together. That'll spice up your love life. Or, oh, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you should encourage him to watch porn because at least he's not cheating. Like, so there are viewpoints like that are hurtful too.
Yeah.
So you could be hurt in either way, and I think you could be helped in either place. But there really is asking those questions of, am I going to someone who's competent in this area, and do I discern this is going to be a good environment for me?
Yeah. Does this seem healthy? Does this seem helpful?
If not, then be willing to maybe make a change.